Okay, so let's start seeing the upsides in climate change. And today, what I have prepared today, we will learn how to stop climate change, and what we can personally do about climate change, and 5 ways to cope with eco-anxiety. And I have to make the video smaller, otherwise I can see my own slides. So if that's not sufficient to keep you in the presentation for 45 minutes, then you have registered for the wrong event. So I hope that is interesting to you. How do I want to achieve it? By walking you through 8 perspectives on climate change. And those were actually 8 perspectives that I went through in the last 6 months. And it started before, when I was still working in my human resources consultancy, participating in a workshop where actually Alex was also, and we were discussing 5 perspectives. And that was very revealing to me, because before that, I basically thought we have 2 perspectives that you can see represented here. You are either a climate activist and you take it seriously and you fight for progress on the matter, or you're a denialist, you're ignorant, or you're just lazy and you don't want to know and you don't act. So either you are good or not. So those are basically the 2 perspectives that I thought there are. And that of course made it very difficult, because I knew I was actually neither. I was not Greta Thunberg and I was not Donald Trump. But so who am I, and what role can I play if I feel I cannot identify with either 2? I would love to identify with Greta, but of course, I don't have any of the impact that she has. So it was very important and helpful for me to find out that there are more than 2 perspectives, and it's not a black and white issue. It's not a binary thing that's either good or bad. It's either problem or solution. It is actually a quite, it's a system. And you can, the toolbox that I have learned from systems thinking can actually be applied to that topic and offers a lot of new insights and solutions. So I'll walk you through 8 perspectives. One is science, the one that you all know, I assume you know, so I won't go into a lot of detail. And actually the order of those perspectives is the order that we followed in the workshop, and it worked for me, so I hope it'll work for you. A bit of anxiety, that won't be too long, because that was covered I think 3 weeks ago in the workshop with Britt here, with Gwyneth. The solutions, the apocalypse. Before I wrote on this perspective in more detail, it took me, I think, 2 weeks before I read the longer article by Jane Bendel, because I was scared of it. And but it really helped me. I think it is very valuable to look in more detail on that perspective and learn from it, because there's a lot of, I think, very powerful lessons to take away, and positive and encouraging lessons actually. Beyond climate, that's drawing very much on Charles Eisenstein and his Gaia approach. And then money, ideology, and communication and action. So this is what I will walk you through, and then answer the 3 small questions that I raised at the beginning of the workshop. You see the developments here in this little graphs on things like population growth, livestock growth, per capita meat consumption, GDP growth, global tree cover loss, Amazon forest loss, energy consumption, air transport in miles, or in passengers, assets divested. So that's just the amount of money that's there, CO2 emissions, and per capita CO2 emissions. And you see that basically all of those graphs are going into the wrong direction. And if you extend them to 2020, they still keep going in the wrong direction. So science is very clear that we're far not doing the right things. And although, things have been known for a long time that we're destroying our planet, not only in terms of the climate, but also in terms of biodiversity and nitrate and phosphorus and many other dimensions, we are not changing the direction. Actually, we've not even managed to change the path we're on, let alone being in safe space. This is the forecast by the Carbon Action Tracker on where we will go climate-wise. This is the first one here, no climate policy. So if we just do business as usual, change nothing, we'll get at least 4 to 5 degrees warmer than now. If we implement all the current policies, we'll still be between 3 and 4 degrees. If we implement what has been pledged at the Paris Agreement, we'll still be beyond 3 degrees probably. And if we want to stay below 1.5 degrees, we have to be a lot more ambitious than what we have already agreed on the Paris Agreement. And we are far from reaching what we have pledged at the Paris Agreement. So that's why science has been really calling the alarms in the last 2 years. What does it make us feel? It makes us feel scared. And this is actually a slide from Brit that she presented last year. Different levels of eco-anxiety has been quite a studied phenomenon already, that people are not just scared when they think of it, but they're constantly scared, and it affects their health. This is the basic word that I like. It's called retreat. So when I feel scared, and when anybody feels scared, I think that's a very good direction to take. If you take it literally, it means retreat, so treat differently. So I think it's very important that we are careful with ourselves. It's actually, Christian, who has told us that he's participating, is a longtime friend of mine, and he's the latest recruit for this event, because I only talked to him this afternoon and told him about it. So welcome, Christian. And we have been talking a lot about the saying that charity begins at home. So if you want to save the world, you have to start with yourself. And then you can grow it from there. And I think that's very important. So when you feel concerned, worried, scared, you have to take a break and look after yourself first. The solutions, and actually that is a very nice perspective, because if you look at this, just a very, very small excerpt of what's shared on LinkedIn and on the news every day, how to drive fossil fuels out of the US economy quickly. US has everything it needs to decarbonize by 2035. That's in 14 years. And actually there's just recently been published a study for Germany as well. It's possible, it's completely possible. Another one here, aggressive push to 100% renewable energy could save Americans billions, 300 your voice. The solutions, and actually that is a very nice perspective. Because if you look at this, just a very, very small excerpt of what's shared on LinkedIn and on the news every day, how to drive fossil fuels out of the US economy quickly. US has everything it needs to decarbonize by 2035. That's in 14 years. And actually there's just recently been published a study for Germany as well. It's possible, it's completely possible. Another one here, aggressive push to 100% renewable energy could save Americans billions. $321 billion could be saved with a complete switch to clean energy sources. And that's why, because solar's future is insanely cheap. You are seeing here. So you can see here the price range of operating of already built fossil power plants. So it's not including the investment costs, and you're between 2.5 and 5 cents per kilowatt hour, US dollar cents. In most countries, the solar energy is already below that, and wind is also in the same range. And only in Sweden or in Germany, you're more expensive, but only more expensive than the already built ones. So that means it's already far cheaper. And it's getting so much more cheaper, like by 2037, even in Sweden and everywhere. And that does not even include all the external costs of the fossil power plants. So it does not include the climate change costs. It does not include the health costs. It doesn't include anything. And we all know this is an unfair comparison. So renewable energies are so incredibly inexpensive that we wouldn't have to do anything, and we would phase out fossil fuels anyway. It's just the problem that it's not fast enough. other solutions or parts of the solution. You have look, shift this around here. COVID recovery funds dwarf clean energy investment. Just very recent article that says if we invested only 10% of what we now giving out in COVID recovery money to the renewable energy transition, it would be enough to be there in 5 years' time. So the states are showing that they are prepared and that they have the money, and if we use it on the right issues, we can reach our targets, we can reach the Paris Agreement. There's a recent article that shows if we restore 30% of ecosystems on farmland, we can avert more than 70% of projected wildlife extinction, absorb nearly half of carbon dioxide ever emitted since the Industrial Revolution, if you do it smartly. So by regenerating soil and forests and wetlands, we can really draw enormous amounts of carbon out of the atmosphere. Okay, so that was the perspective that I was scared about, the apocalypse. It started, I know it started, but there was Jonathan Franzen, the great novelist, who published an article last year in the New Yorker. What if we stop pretending the climate apocalypse is coming? To prepare for it, we need to admit that we won't or we can't prevent it. There's a Professor Jem Bendell from the UK who has written a paper called the Deep Adaptation Agenda, where he also collects all the information and says we should stop pretending that we can stop this. We should stop being so naive. We should rather open our eyes to the fact that we'll not stop it and prepare for what's coming then, prepare for the life after the collapse. Jem Bendell, he has then written about, so what do we do if we accept it? And he calls it the Deep Adaptation Agenda. And he says, instead of desperately only going after how can we prevent it, we should rather prepare for what's after the collapse, the catastrophe. Of course, not the possible extinctions. There's nothing after the extinction, but maybe in between. And he says we should focus on resilience. How do we keep what we really want to keep? On relinquishment. What do we need to let go of in order not to make matters worse? And on restoration. So what can we bring back in order to help us cope with the coming challenges? And yeah, that's quite important questions. He makes it clear that that does not mean for him to not try to stop it. So it's a little bit paradox that he says we cannot stop it, but we should try nonetheless. But he says it in his article. I think he's been very misunderstood. That and also Jonathan Franzen in his article, he's not saying let's stop climate action. They're not saying that. They're just saying let's keep on trying to reduce it, to mitigate the climate risks, and not be naive and prepare for what we have already caused anyway. Where do I see the upsides in that perspective? And you know, you have asked, I think, Kira, what's about this upside in climate change? What can be an upside in seeing the apocalypse? I felt relief because if you work so hard to prevent something so big, which is so far out of your scope of influence, out of your area where you can have an impact, you're bound to despair and you're bound to be overwhelmed. And if you stop targeting that, there's a sense of liberation, a sense of relief, sense of okay. Good. So now we've erased that from our to-do list, saving the world. So what do we do then? You know, what's maybe a target that I can achieve? And that's a very, very positive and inspiring thought. It inspires gratitude because it makes you very conscious about what we have. And it makes you also very conscious about what we want to save. And it's actually helping to have a deeper sense of what you're doing, and to have a deeper sense of why you're doing it. And of course, there's a strong element of grief, of sadness with it, because we are sacrificing it for no reason, and we are endangering it for no reason. But there is a strong emotional attachment to what you're actually working for, and that also can be very, very powerful in a very positive manner, that you appreciate life a lot more when you have embrace that perspective a little bit. I don't know, I've never worked in a hospice. I don't know what's the English word when you're with people who, children even, who know that they will die. And what I've heard from people working there is that it's a really, really amazing energy and a very positive, deep sense of connection. And I mean, we are all going to die sometime, and we are ignoring it and pretending that we live forever. And I think a bit of accepting that we'll die makes us appreciate life a lot more. And the paradox about this apocalypse is, if we treated our life as precious as it is, we would be doing all that. So we would stop climate change, we would stop the destruction of nature. If we allowed ourselves to feel it, we couldn't continue doing that, because it's just so irrational. So I think it's a very important perspective, not because you then want to give up, but quite in contrast, because then you really want to preserve it. It adds resilience because it makes you shock resistant, because, you know, when you are only striving for the ultimate goal, and then every news that you receive which says, oh, you were even farther from the ultimate goal, then it sets you back and you have to rebuild emotionally. And when you have it relaxes you, so it makes you more resilient to bad news. It helps you to refocus, because it helps you to actually ask yourself, so okay, now if this one big target is gone, or it's not the main target anymore, so what is really important? It's like the question of resilience or relinquishment or restoration, but also, what do I want to do with my life? You know, it's like, you don't have to postpone your life for after we have saved the world. You can live it now, and I think that's a very important motivation to actually improve what we have right now, and not something in the future. It provides a sense of community that I think, Gwyneth, you're also in the deep adaptation community, and Andrea, we were in this workshop together. It can also be a community of, I don't know, uniting in despair or in frustration, or oh, life is so terrible. Oh yes, you're also feeling it so terrible. So it can also be that you're, you know, finding community in others who also feel so frustrated, but that's not how I mean it, like a community of desperation. I think it's just you want to do something together, and you want to restore something together, and also because the restoration and the part of the relinquishment means also preparing for a life when some things you take for granted have collapsed, like food production, distribution may collapse, energy distribution grids may collapse. So what can we rely on? And that's also what Jonathan Franzen says. It's we have to really strengthen our administrations, our communities, our governmental institutions, and trust we have in public institutions, if we want to survive that, because it'll be tough. So we really have to put more emphasis on community. And the nice, and again, paradox thing is, if we had focused on communities before, and if we had strengthened decentral, self-sustaining entities before, we wouldn't have caused it. That what we now are trying to prepare for. So I think preparing for the apocalypse actually helps preventing it, and that's again very paradox. I'll keep it a bit shorter. Charles Eisenstein, Beyond Climate, that's the Gaia figure that you see here, that says everything is connected, and Mother Earth is an organ, is an organism, and everything is an organ. Every river, every tree, and every human being, and we're all connected. And the climate is just one symptom of Gaia being ill. And he says, if we just treating climate change, it's like if you have a patient that has a big inflammation, and that's why he has or she has fever, and you're just trying to remove the fever without doing anything about the inflammation, about the wound. And that's like what we're doing with climate change. We're trying to get rid of the carbon, and we're not seeing how we are destroying the whole organism. So he has to, he says we have to focus on everything, on soil, on waters, on politics, on the environment, on money, energy, education, really on everything. And that's also in this quote, you see the present convergence of crisis is a birth crisis, expelling us from the old world into a new. And that's also one perspective that gives me a lot of hope, because he says it's like humankind is kind of going through puberty, and we have built up so much, and now we are growing up and maturing and finding out that we should stop growing and put this to better use, the skills we have acquired, and accept and find new meaning in the sense that we're actually connected, and stop the current trajectory also of how we deal with each other and with nature, and with our planet that's nourishing us. So what I take from Charles Eisenstein, this has now been really short, but he has written many books, and the last book is specifically called Climate, and I really recommend reading it. It was a great literature for me, very, very revealing and rewarding and important. We are all connected, so we are one with the opponent. There's no such thing as we are the good ones and they are the bad ones, and we are the solution and they're the problems, and we're all part of the problem. And we can all be part of the solution, and we shouldn't fight the other ones. And that really also helped me regain power, because it's not about fighting anybody, because there's nobody doing it against me. There's nobody doing it on purpose. The other one is doing it because I'm doing what I'm doing. And so if I want to change the other person, I have to change. And if I change, they will change. So that gave me actually a feeling of empowerment that I didn't have before. And before that, I felt that, in the current systems, how can I make a difference in that political system? And with Trump and Brazil and China and the fossil industry and the automotive, and it's a mess, and what can I do? And in that system, I cannot change anything. But if I change the system, then I have an influence. So it really helped me. Nobody knows, science doesn't know. They have a lot of measurements, a lot of ideas, and a lot of reason to predict what they predict. But again, a few years back, they said we should build these huge dams, and then they said we should grow corn to make biofuel from it. And now they're saying something else. So yes, I do believe in science, but we should not believe everything they say. And maybe nature has more to offer than what science knows. Definitely, nature has more to offer than what science knows. So I take the right for myself to have faith, even when science paints it in very dark pictures, because maybe they are wrong, and so I should at least try. Change comes from the inside. That's very important, I think. For me, it's how much I can. How much transformation I can start by changing myself. The target is here and it's now. So it's not about the ultimate thing in the future somewhere else. It's about compensating this hill here, compensating for and building a tree there. It's every tree I cut is sad. And I should try to work on my immediate surroundings and improve it. And that's climate action. And it doesn't matter where I improve it. It doesn't matter what I improve. If I improve the relationship with my friends, if I improve the social connections in the school that I work in, it's climate action, and it has an impact on the overall climate, on the growth of the trees somewhere else. The climate crisis is a symptom. It's not the cause. So again. Improve the deeper level. Greenhouse gases are only one element of the problem. We should not reduce it to that. And actually, the entire literature on the circular economy is also saying the same thing. So I found that very interesting, coming from a very different angle, that if we should focus on all materials and all resources that we draw from the nature, and not just energy and greenhouse gases. The way we exploit everything else about the planet is just as harmful and just as dangerous, maybe even more dangerous than the greenhouse gases. So we need a complete redesign of our economies, basically, of our way of interbeing, and also of our way of climate action. Okay. Money, I won't go into detail because it's too big a topic and there's not enough time. And there is a strong business case in climate action. You can see it here. There is a lot of money that governments could spend. I'm a great fan of modern monetary theory. The basic claim that you see here in this super complicated graph is money comes from government. It's like in a monopoly game. It's not coming from business. It's not businesses paying taxes to government so government can finance its expenditures. It's the other way around. The government is spreading and distributing, disseminating the money to businesses, and then they tax it back. So when they have a deficit, so they're not taxing back as much as they give, they're actually creating growth. But the debt that they have is just, they're just creating more money, but there's no problem with that debt. They wouldn't even have to buy official debt titles, but even if they do, as they do now, the central bank buys them and then can erase them sometime later. It's just that's not real. so money is not real. What matters are the real resources behind it. And if we have the resources to tackle the climate crisis, the money can be made available. The money is just a tool. And the last thing, the reason we are destroying our planet is very much money driven, money created by commercial loans for creating products, which again is always nature that's been turned into a product. Money currently it's stable, so it's always better to have money than to have anything else. So it's, if you have the choice to have the forest or to have money, if I can make more money from that forest than I have right now, it's good to have money because then I can buy a new forest. That's the thinking, and so we have to change the stability of money, and it's actually already happening. The power is with the money at the moment because government thinks they have no money on their own, and interest rates enforce monetary growth. So when you give a loan to somebody and they have to pay it back with interest, and they have to create this money by making more nature into products. So that makes nature very vulnerable. So we have to work on that too. But maybe that. When climate change denialists say climate change doesn't exist, they don't talk about climate change. It's about a feeling of deprivation or threat directed against any kind of modern changes to established habits and lifestyles. It's emotions of fear, jealousy, neglect, powerlessness, loss of control, inferiority, shame. That's, why are people voting for populist parties? Not because they're believing in what they're saying in terms of content. So that's a kind of behavior, exclusionary, anti-egalitarian, anti-establishment, so on. And they don't care about climate. Really, climate is just one tool they have for expressing their emotions. So reacting to it by discussing climate change is just completely useless. So what they would need is comfort, appreciation, protection, listening, practical solutions, calmness, endorsing what they're coming from. So I try not to argue about climate change. A guy called Per Espen Stoknes, he phrased that the 4 Ds of current climate communication: doom, distance, dissonance, and identity. So that's how climate change is framed. So it's disaster, it's somewhere far apart from your daily life, in the future, different country, definitely different dimension, completely out of your scope of control, of influence. It's totally dissonant because you're told that your life is wrong, but at the same time, you're always told that you have to do more of that, you know, buy this, buy that, growth is good, consumption is good, but consumption is bad. You're causing climate change. And I mean, what do you expect? I mean, you have to either go crazy or ignore it. It's a completely healthy reaction to be a climate change denialist to some extent. And it's, what is the threat? A threat because the way we have been brought up is challenged. So what do you do when that happens? You reject it. It's a very normal psychological reaction. This is Oatly. This is the in contrast, climate communication, which is hopeful, near, connected, appreciative. It's fun, it's cool, and it creates an immediate desire to be part of it. And I think really climate activists, they can learn a lot from Oatly's campaigning and a few others. So what do we need if we want people to change? We have, actually this creates a desire for action if you communicate hopeful, near, connected, appreciative. And then if you add to that information, maybe have some social norms of fairness, provide inspiring targets, give a roadmap, how will we get there, provide role models, people that are already doing it, that you're familiar with. There is research that shows really the closer somebody is to you who is a role model or an example, the more likely you are to follow it. So if they put up a sign in a hotel room, somebody else in this room, people in this room usually put their towel on the shelf, so they want to use it again, then guests are most likely to do it the same. If they are writing this is better for the environment or something, people not following it that much. So role models and community. We are very, very social animals. We human beings, we like to fulfill the expectations that others have in us. And so if we feel that the people around us expect us to do something, we want to do it. We want to conform to the expectations. So we need to create these expectations, and we create the expectations by giving the examples and showing, providing the experience that it's fun, it's doable, it's in your sphere of influence, it makes sense, and it's fun, it's good. Yeah, you know, you do something good and you feel good. And I think that's very important if we treat climate change and climate communication like that. So here again, comparison, you have this left poster, which is great design, but horrible message. And the right one, which is, you know, the little penguins pulling the plug, and here it says, turn it off now. It's just cute, and it's very immediate, and you know what they want from you, and say, oh, that's so cute, I do that. Okay, so how to stop climate change? Now I have to put this again away. Purpose-driven planet leadership on all levels, and that's, I mean, leadership can come from anybody, it's not just from leaders. But if we want people to follow in the right direction, there has to be people that take the lead and go there. And that can be you. And not because you make the difference, but because all these people walking behind you and following you, together you'll make the difference. We need better indicators for prosperity than GDP and the general accounting principles. We need regenerative agriculture. We need to strengthen communities and collective planet action for basically the most reason that I've talked today about a lady, she's working in a campaign in Germany called the climate bet, not BET. So they're betting that I could save 1 ton of CO2, and they're doing it on an individual level. So they're trying to get people enrolled and pledging that they will save 1 ton of CO2. And she asked me if I want to also pledge. I said, you know, I'm already giving to Atmosphere and to the WWF and to Greenpeace and to all of those. I can do that to you too, but it doesn't make a difference. You have to reach the people that haven't done that yet. You have to reach people that have not committed to climate action so far. And what difference do you make to them? So we talked about it, and there's actually a very good talk, because we came up with that actually you have to go to the communities where those people are. And you have to get the school of the kids to pledge, and you have to get the voluntary firefighters, and you have to get the what you call the Pfadfinder, the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, and you know, you have to the sports clubs and go there and have the sports club to pledge, and then they can do it together, and they can make a rally, and they can change the heating of their buildings, and they can plant flowers and trees and do whatever, and they do together, and they feel useful and impactful, and it makes sense. And then when they have this experience, they go home and do it at home too. And I think that makes a lot more sense than going to the same people ever and ever again and telling them they have to do more. And those who see it, they do it already anyway. And those who don't see it, they will not see it then either. So that's, I think, very important. Restoration of nature, very crucial. Circular material flows, very, very important. And of course, we need more and better government spending, regulations, and taxation, which is not going to happen, not so soon. But if we take the lead, governments will follow. I'm very sure about that. So what can you do personally? Look at your messaging, focus on near, hopeful, connected, appreciative messages, strengthen community and joint planned action, strive for tangible, positive results and have fun doing it. So don't fight against climate change, but fight for a better life now with your folks, with your peers. Just create something nice around you. Display planet leadership. Choose climate action that touch you and that your talents call for. So, you know, don't go for something abstract, but go for something that has your name on it. Focus on purpose, your own purpose, call for purpose, strive for purpose in wherever you are, the school, the company you work for. Ask them, so why are we here? What's really the reason why we are doing this? Is this the best reason? Maybe there's a better one. Let's talk about it. And that actually also creates strong connection and sometimes change. Enjoy your life, take care of you, about the others, because that's what we're doing this for, right? So don't postpone it. Undermine the monetary system and support monetary degrowth wherever you can. So, you know, create rooms where you give things away or build something together that's not sold. I saw an initiative once, not so long ago. It's called Sit Einander. It's like babysitting for your friends, and I like that a lot. So just support doing things without money. If you have money, give it away, or spend it on something useful, and don't look so much on the return. And try to combine solutions on all levels. So like start a local bicycle repair for free with disadvantaged youth. That does everything. And you know, it helps climate change because people bicycle more and they don't buy a new bicycle. So it's really great. Last but not least, 5 things to manage eco-anxiety. Faith. That's doesn't really matter where it comes from, but it's important to have it because we cannot win this by fear. So it's by scaring the other one, we'll not win anything. We'll win them only because we convince them that we have a better solution. And it's tested, and it's actually really cool. Systemic thinking, that's when you think about, you know, the title of the workshop, the upsides of climate change. If you have a systemic training, you learn to think of problems as an indicator of some deeper flaw in that system. So that somebody is arguing is usually not the problem, but it's just a sign, you know, or that you have a stomach ache is not the problem, it's the sign. So it gives you the chance to think about, okay, what is this a sign for? Why is this happening to me? Why? What do I need to fix? Really need to fix? And just removing the symptom is usually not going to change anything, because as soon as you put your attention somewhere else, the symptoms will come back. So it's and what you advise as a systemic coach to your coachees, that whenever the problem is coming up, that they should just welcome it and say, okay, that's great that it's here again, because it knows, I know now that again, when it's coming, that I have to do something for myself or for something, you know, it reminds me of the pattern that I follow, which is not productive, which is not useful. So climate change really gives us a chance to change the world we're living in. And if it wasn't so threatening, we wouldn't do that. So I think it's important. It's like Corona, which is awful, but it's a sign that we have to change things. It's not strong enough, but we should see that as an opportunity to go deeper and fix some bigger flaws. And we are connected. So if I change, you change, and so that's very powerful. And so it's it does matter what you do, regardless of the immediate impact that you have. And actually, it's not the last one yet. I promised 5, right? So there's one more coming. Letting go. I think one of the reasons why we are in this mess, why